Hello buddies, Murray here and welcome back to my channel M Stuart Paintings. On today's painting tutorial I thought I'd break down how I paint this large painting and teach you all in a tutorial how to paint a sunset, how to paint clouds and how to paint light on an ocean. So let's get into it. Now the colours we're going to use today are titanium white, cad yellow deep hue, a matte orange, a cool matte iris purple, a matte crimson, cerulean blue, cobalt blue and Prussian blue. Now don't worry if you don't have these colours, I will go through how to make them. And all I've done is I've painted a canvas, burnt sienna, I've used chalk just to create an outline. I've got 2/3 as the sky and 1/3 as the ocean, the sun just above the horizon. We're going to darken the corners as usual and create a light effect, and we're going to teach you how to create a gorgeous ocean sunset. So we've got titanium white, we've got cad yellow, we've got a little bit darker cad yellow hue which is just a tad of orange into it. We've got a matte orange and a matte crimson. We've got a very cool purple, and then we've got this dark blue and a light blue which I'll go through how to make in a minute, and we've got Prussian blue at the bottom which is just cobalt blue and a bit of black if you want to make Prussian blue. But I'll go through how to make the lighter blue and the dark blue as usual in a minute. So what we're going to do, we're going to block everything in. So we're going to get some titanium white and put in the sun just above our horizon. We're going to use the lighter of the cad yellow, so it's just a sort of lemon yellow cad yellow around the sun, and then we're just going to use the darker cad yellow deep hue it's called. People have been asking me to name the actual official names of the paint, so I'm trying to pronounce them the best I can. But all you've got to do is just basically add a tiny bit of orange to your yellow and you get the deeper, more golden tone of yellow. Now again, don't worry if it's streaky, don't worry if it's really rough, we're just blocking it in. Now to make this light blue, all you need is titanium white, a bit of cerulean blue and a bit of cobalt blue and a dot of black, but predominantly white, and you should get this really nice light blue. So if you just paint above the yellow while the yellow dries, please don't mix it with the yellow because you will get green, and we'll just block this area in, and this is going to be just as the sky gets darker as it goes towards the corners, we're just getting more blue. Now to get a darker tone of this blue, all you do is you add more cobalt blue and more cerulean blue, less white and a dot of purple and a dot of black, and you should get this nice cooler version, because the purple just makes it a little bit more cooler. And all we're going to do is we're just going to mix the darker tone into the lighter tone, and it's just going to get darker as it goes up. The horizon of a sunset is always lighter than the top of a painting, so all we're going to do is just make it nice and dark at the top and nice and light at the bottom of our painting. So we're going to get some lavender. Now to make lavender, all you do is you just get some purple, tons and tons and tons of white, so predominantly white, a little bit of purple, a little bit of cobalt blue and a dot of black, and you should get a really pastel purple, so it's more white than anything, just like that blue. And again, all we're doing, we're just going round that yellow. We don't want to mix it just yet, just while the yellow is drying, and we're just going to create a lighter shade. Now all we're going to do, now it's starting to dry, we're going to get some of the deep cad yellow and we're going to get some of that lavender, and we're just going to mix it together, and we're just going to make a bridge tone. So because we've got a cool sky in the blue, we don't want to get green, so what we're going to do is we're just going to bridge the two together and just create a sort of really nice sort of mix between a hot colour in yellow and a cooler colour in the white purple. So all we're doing, I'm just blocking it in. As I say, don't worry if it's scruffy, don't worry if it's messy. We're just trying to get where everything's going to go in the picture, and then we'll build up the sunset one layer at a time. But we always start at the back, and the sky is always the hardest bit. So don't worry, we're just going to take our time and do all that. So all I'm doing, I'm just while it's drying, I'm just adding more yellow. I'm just going round it. And it's just to emphasize the sun. It's just so I know where it is. So there we go. Easy peasy. So all I'm doing, I'm just coming down to the horizon and I'm just trying to cover it up as much as the canvas as I can. So as I say, we're not going to worry about blending at the moment. We're not going to worry about just getting it seamless. We're just trying to create the transition at the moment. Now we're going to do the ocean. So we're just going to get some orange and we're going to get some crimson. Now what we're going to do, we're going to put the shadows on first of the ocean, and then I'm going to teach you how to do waves and everything super easy. But what we're going to do, we're going to lay the underpainting. Now the light is going to be brightest at the nearer the sun, and it's going to get darker as it moves towards the viewer as that's further away from the sun. So all we're doing, we're adding more crimson to our orange as we come down towards the base of the painting. So all we're doing, we're just getting more purpley, more crimson as we move away from that sun. So as we add in more crimson to the mix, we're going to get cooler. So we're getting further and further away from the light source. So we're going to add some of that cool purple and a bit of that Prussian blue into it. And we're going to add a little bit of crimson because we don't want to make it not too hot. And all we're going to do is, we're just moving towards the viewer and the base of the painting. So if you always think it's always going to be cooler away from a light source, and it's just going to get darker, and what that does is it frames the composition, frames the painting. So just by adding more of the cool purple and more of that really blue and black, which is Prussian blue, a tiny bit of crimson just to give it a tiny bit of heat, I'll just lift the painting up onto the easel, and we're just going to darken up our corners. Now all that does is it really just makes a nice transition from hot to cold, hot around the sun to cool at the base of the painting, and then later on I'll teach you how to do waves. So this is now dry. All I've done is dried it with a hairdryer. So we're going to start working from the back where the sun is, and we're just going to start building up our sunset. So all I'm going to do is just use titanium white and just put in a blob for our sun. And I'm going to use a bright cad yellow, so a really bright cad yellow, and I'm just going to go around my sun. So you can see now, just by adding a second layer, just how much brighter, how much rich the tone looks, just by adding a second layer. With acrylics, as they're water based, they are very streaky. So all we're going to do, we're just going to create a key shape almost. So just coming down to the horizon. Yep, they're very streaky. So just to work on them, so we're just adding some more of that darker yellow and a bit of that purple to get a bit of that lavender and a tiny bit of orange, just so we get a lovely sort of peach colour. Yes, as I say, all you have to do is give it a second coat and just try to work out your streaks. Just try to blend your work just by taking your time and going over it. So we've made this peach colour just from the cad yellow deep hue, a little bit of orange and a little bit of that lavender tone, which was purple, white, a tiny bit of blue and a dot of black. So all we're doing, we're just trying to make everything look a bit more seamless now. We're just trying to give everything a nice second coat. We're just trying to cover up any rough area of our canvas. Now we know roughly where the colours are going to be, and we know roughly where the transitions are going to be. We're just going to try to make it work. So I'm going to add more of that lavender to that mix, and I'm going to create two piles of paint. So I'm going to have a cool colour with a tiny bit of yellow into the lavender just to make it a bit cooler, and then we're going to have a warm tone that we just mixed. So we've got two different colours, and all we're going to do is we're going to put this up towards the sky. So this is getting cooler as it moves away from the sun, and as the sky turns a bit cooler, we're going to add more purple to that mix. But we're going to use the hot version, and we're just going to mix the two together, and we're just going to bridge it together. So just around the sun, we're just going to bridge it just so the transition is a lot smoother and you haven't got a big divide between the two tones. So all we're doing, look, while it's wet, we're just blending the two together, just trying to make it look seamless. So it's a really easy technique. So a lot of painting, as I say, is just taking your time, going over areas. So we're just going over this area. And all I'm doing, as I say, I'm just trying to create almost like a key shape that you'd have in a door. So a little circle and then just a line coming down. And that's just to represent the heat around the sun. So I'm going to take some of that lavender colour, which is a bit cooler. and I'm just going to add a tiny bit of that peach tone, just a tiny bit, and we're going to just make a cooler tone. And again, while it's wet, we're just going to try to blend the tones together. So what we're going for, we're just trying to make a seamless transition going up. So we're getting cooler as we go away from the sun. So all we're doing, look, we're adding more of that lavender tone. And the great thing about the lavender, it's a real good cheat. What it does is it stops your sky from going green. You never see a sunset that goes green in the middle. And the problem when you actually try to paint is to go from yellow to blue creates green. So it's a real annoyance. So all I'm doing, look, I'm just getting light blue and white, and I'm just getting more blue as we go up. So a good rule of thumb is try to make your corners dark. So if you add more of the darker, more purpley blue as we go up, and as I say, just like we did with the hots, all I'm going to do, look, I'm just going to add the two tones together and just blend it. So look, from one tone to another, just by just creating a middle tone, a bridge tone. All we're doing is just bridging the darker blue with the lighter blue. Now, I'm sorry, I bought a set of new brushes today, and for some reason they just shedded all over my painting while it was wet. So I was getting really annoyed. So if there's a bit of gaps, look, and I got paint and just got the rage. But I thought I would leave it in there because unlike most tutorials where everyone just seems perfect, I wanted to show you all artists have days where you get paint everywhere and things go wrong. For some reason, I don't know why, my paintbrush was shedding its bristles all over the paint, and I stuck my thumb in the cool purple and then I got the rage. So I just wanted to show you that because even me, who's a bit of a Zen master, got the hump. So I thought I'd leave it in there for a bit of a gag. So anyway, just try to blend it the best you can and just try to go over it. Just create X shapes just with your big brush and just try to blend the tones together. So there we go, look, that looks pretty damn good. So when you're happy with it, please dry it and we'll start to build it up and we'll start doing the clouds and we'll start making it look really good. But we've got a really lovely transition in colour and we've got that really bright sort of key shape around the sun. We've got that lovely transition in the ocean water, which we're going to use as a cheat later, and I'll show you a super easy way to create waves. So we're going to get some of that cad yellow, and we're just going to go over it again, and we're just trying to make it super prominent, and we're just trying to make it really, really nice. Now the great thing is when you have a dry canvas and you have a dry brush, you can use it and create clouds. So all we're going to do is get some orange and crimson. So a little bit of orange, some crimson, a tiny bit of that Prussian blue just to suck a bit of the colour out. And what we're going to do, I've got a dry brush and the canvas is obviously dry. I'm going to put a tiny bit of that cool purple into it just to make it a bit more browny. So there we go. And I've got this lovely dry brush with my paint. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to wipe a bit of the paint off on my top. And I'm just going to tip my brush sideways, and I'm just going to create sort of chalky clouds. So all I'm doing is, while the canvas is dry, I'm just pushing down gently and I'm just scraping cloud sort of shapes onto my canvas. So all I'm doing, all these clouds, if you think they're nearest to the sun, so they are quite hot in tone, so we're trying to match that with this orangey crimson. So all I'm doing is just creating shapes, and I'm letting the paint run out, and by letting it run out and pushing down with my round headed brush and this lovely sort of dry canvas with the dry brush, what you can do is just create sort of chalky sort of fluffy bits around your clouds, so it just gives the illusion that they're wispy and they're fading off into the distance. Now just like the transition in the water, we're going to match that in the clouds. So we're going to get more crimson now and a little bit more purple to our mix. We're just going to make it darker, a tiny bit of Prussian blue, and it's still got a bit of orange in it. And what we're doing is, if you think of it, we're getting further away from the light source, so we're trying to create a darker set of clouds. So if you think, what we're trying to do is we're trying to create a tone that matches that. So where we've got our lovely transition in the background sky, we want to create colours that represent shadow and the clouds getting cooler in tone. So we use cooler tones such as blues and purples, and we want to give it a little bit of heat. We don't want to jump too far from hot to cold, so that's why we use the crimson. So we're going to get a bit cooler as we move away from the light source. So we're going to get some Prussian blue, some of that cool iris purple, and we're going to mix that into our crimson. And again, look, we're just blending into the 3 tones previously. So we've got the light orange, and then we've got the crimson, and now we've got this bluey purple. And what it should do with that lovely transition in sky, it should match. It should, as the sky in the background is cooler, so should the clouds that go on top of it match it, and that will trick the viewer's eyes. So obviously we've got our bit of a monstrosity in the middle with our key shaped sun, but we'll blend that all together. But what we want to do is we want to match the color tones with the transition in the background sky. So again, look, all I'm doing is just pushing down, just creating shapes, just creating lovely little clouds, and then rubbing a bit of the paint off, and I'm just creating some little floated clouds just with the colour and very little paint. And as you can see, I'm trying to get those bristles. God, it was annoying. I don't know why. It was like a shedding dog all over my painting. It was so annoying. I don't know why. I use this brand all the time of brushes. For some reason, it's only when you film things go wrong. It's like you've been framed or something. So look, all we're doing, we're just creating some tiny little floating clouds, just trying to make some of the edges a little bit wispy with hardly any paint. So there we go, that looks fantastic. So we're going to add some orange to that mix. So we're just going to add some real bright orange and yellow to that mix. Let's add a lot of yellow, why not? We're going to make this really super bright orangey yellow, and we're just going to go around the base of these clouds because these are getting the most sunlight, so they are the warmest in tone, and we're just going to create some little clouds. Now while we've got this lovely transition, it's a bit bland, so what we're going to do is, because we're going to try and match the painting that obviously I've done previously, we're going to make the orange really prominent, and we're going to go right down to the horizon and make it look really electric in tone, just with this really bright tone. So we're going to leave some gaps in that nice transition, but I really want to make it really super bright. So what I'm going to do, so I'm just going to colour in these corners, just try to frame the painting, and I'm just going to leave some gaps, and we're just going to generally build it up with a brighter tone. And this is all the heat. So if you think of the sun as this incredibly hot light source, that all the heat, and it gets cooler as it moves away in the sky. So we're going to get some of that cad yellow, and we're just going to add a little bit of orange now, just to make a more peachy tone. So more yellow than orange, please. And what we're going to do is we're just going to try to merge that key shape into that orange that we just did. So all we're doing, we're just going really gently around it. We're just trying to merge the two. So again, it's a bit of a bridge tone. We haven't got a jump so much between this super bright yellow, this illuminating sun. So look, we're just putting more yellow around it, and now it's wet, we can just gently blend the two together. So look, all I'm doing is going around it. If I zoom in for you so it's a bit easier so you can see, all we're going to do is we're just going to try to make it look a bit softer. So we're going to keep that key shape, but we're just going to kind of make it look a bit softer. We're just turning my paintbrush sideways and gently pushing onto the canvas, and just while it's wet, just blending it into that lovely orange. So look, all I'm doing, using really super vibrant yellow, and I'm just blending it over and over again. So that's the thing with acrylics. If you want your work to look really vibrant in tone, sometimes you have to do a few layers. Unlike oil paints where they're super vibrant, with acrylics it picks up the undertone of what you previously laid. So if you've got a darker tone underneath, hence the fact you've got to give it 2 layers. So look, all I'm doing is I'm using that cad yellow, and I'm just going around some of the clouds just to make them look really electric, and just make it look like those sunbeams are just flying out and just outlining the cloud. You get these gorgeous sort of sunsets in places like Ibiza and the Caribbean and all these gorgeous places. And when you see the light, it almost outlines it, and it creates this lovely sort of outline around the clouds. So what we're trying to do is we're just trying to match that with this super bright yellow and just go around it. Now you can see me sometimes use my finger. All I'm doing is sometimes when you lay paint it's a bit too bright. So look, all I'm doing there is I'm just mixing some orange and yellow together just to get sort of that peach tone. I'm just doing the same trick with the highlights, but just bridging the gap just so there's not such a harsh orange. Yeah, and just by using your finger, all I'm doing is just trying to smear the paint. You can use things like a blender brush, but all I'm doing is just gently smearing the paint just so the jump isn't too harsh, that the highlights aren't too prominent and they don't stick out too much. It's a good easy trick just to make things look further away just by blending them with your finger. So it's a good little easy trick. So look, there we go. It's just making it look, the transition again looks softer. You've got to remember it's further away. So we're going to add some orange, crimson and yellow together. So we don't want to make the highlights too harsh because that will bring it forward. So all we're doing, we're just trying to make some of these dark, let's see, just by blending it with my finger. We're trying to make it look soft, still kind of detailed, but we don't want to make it too detailed and bring it towards the viewer. So by making it soft and almost blurry like, when we go to take a step or two away from it, it should look very real just from the tones. So look, we're going to use our titanium white and put back in our sun. Going to mix a tiny bit of yellow into some white and just make a really, really bright yellowy white and just go around it, just give it sort of that glow effect. And then I'm just going to get some of the bright yellow and just with a highlighter just go over some of the nearest clouds to the sun just to make them look really popping, because they're the ones that are getting the most of that sunlight, so they're going to be the most electric in tone, and it's just to emphasize the highlights. So it's a really, really easy trick. So as I keep saying to you in all the tutorials, you've got to lay the base foundation, which is the gradient in the sky. You add the clouds over the top, you do the shadows first and then add the highlights over the top, and then it's so easy to build up. And the sky is always the hardest bit. It's the transitions, the gradient in colour. That is always the hardest bit, so that takes the longest. But we have done a fantastic job. So we've got this gorgeous sunset. We've got this central point. So we're going to get some crimson and some of that purple. And I'm just going to put some tiny little floater details just on some of the clouds just up here, just so it doesn't look so flat. Just make it look a little bit more realistic just by adding a few little ones. Yeah, so we've got this gorgeous central point to look at. So the great thing about the sun or having a moon in your painting, so having something in, or a person even, try to have it in the middle so it draws the viewer's eyes. And if you have your darkened corners, what it does by using the light source, it just draws the person into the painting and it gives them a focus to focus onto. So it tricks their eyes because they look dead straight into the painting and they kind of get lost into the scene, and it just makes your scene look a bit more realistic. So even if you're painting something like a lighthouse or something, try to have it in the middle as the central point that something is looking at, and then it can draw the viewer into your painting. So our sunset is looking fantastic. It is looking awesome. So I'm going to teach you how to do waves. Super easy. So as I say, we've done all the hard work. That was all the tough bit. So we're going to do the easy bit now, which is to create a gorgeous wave. So we've got this lovely transition in tone, and that's going to be the dark shadows. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use a tape measure and some chalk. Just going to make sure my horizon is nice and straight. The great thing about using chalk on your painting, unlike pencil, you can literally lick your finger and just wipe it away when you're finished. So you can create great straight horizons, or you can even draw things onto your work, and then if you don't like where they are, you can move them about. So all I'm going to do is just really quickly just straighten up the horizon at the top, and then I'm going to dry my painting before I apply the painting tape again. I'm just going to quickly blitz it with a hairdryer once I remove the tape, and I've got my lovely straight horizon. I'm just going to blitz it with a hairdryer before I reapply the tape, because I don't want to pull off the paint that I just used. And we've got a lovely straight horizon, and I'm going to show you how to do waves. So first thing you need is a flat-headed paintbrush, and that's the reason it's so much easier to do straight lines with a flat-headed paintbrush. So we're going to take some yellow and orange, and we're going to create a really bright peach tone. And we've got our flat brush that we're going to load up. So if you load up your brush, you've got this really nice straight brush, and all we're going to do is draw little wiggles to create waves, and these are going to be all the highlights. So these are going to be all the sunlight hitting underneath that burning sun. And all we're doing, we're leaving really tight gaps. So we've got really little gaps as we move at the top of our tape. So if you think the further away, the flatter your waves are going to be. And as you move down, we're going to leave bigger gaps in between our waves. So look, all I'm doing, I'm leaving more of the underpainting and leaving bigger gaps as I move towards the bottom of the painting. So if you think they're all squished together and they're all very flat and straight as they move towards the top, but you've still got some gaps to create the illusion of the shade and the darkness in the waves. And as we move towards the bottom, if you watch me, the gaps are getting wider and they're getting bigger. So look, they're really squashed at the top and they're getting wider and bigger. The gaps between, the gap of the underpainting. So if I zoom to show you, so look, all I'm doing is doing little wiggles, and the gap is getting bigger as it moves towards the bottom. Now, why is the gap getting bigger? It's to create the illusion of distance. It's to create the illusion of not only highlights in your work, but to create the illusion of distance, because as it comes towards you, obviously the waves are going to appear bigger. So we're going to get some orange and add it to the mix, and a little bit of crimson. So let's add a little bit of a cooler tone just by adding some crimson, and we're just going to do either side. So we're just going to merge it into that, and we're going to do the same technique. So we've got the hottest tone underneath the sun, and look, all I'm doing is I'm getting wider. That flat brush is doing all the work. I'm just leaving gaps. And that great thing about the transition that we did previously, it's tricking the eye and it's creating the illusion of shadows in your waves. So I told you this was super easy. So look, we're just getting wider as we move towards the bottom of the painting. Our sunset is fantastic, and now our ocean sunset waves are going to be so cool. So look, all we're doing is you're just matching it either side. Look at this. This is so cool and easy. So then we're going to add some crimson to our mix. And we're going to add... No, we're not going to add anything. We're just going to make it a little bit darker. And we're just going to come down, do the exact same trick. There we go. And as you can see, because we've got that lovely transition in the underpainting, it's tricking your eyes. It's making it look like waves. So look, we're coming down. So all we're doing is coming down. So I'm trying to match it either side, and the gaps are getting bigger and those waves are appearing bigger to create the illusion of depths. Now all we're going to do is add a bit of Prussian blue, a little bit of that purple just to make a cooler tone. So I've got this nice cool tone. I'm just going to put it here in the corner, just to make this corner look very cold, because I'm going to sign it there. And I'm just going to match a little bit in the middle here. It's just to make it look a little bit cooler. And these could be some of the cool highlights, just where the sun is shining down on it, where you get the light reflection on the water. But you see how quick that was, and it was so easy. And all I'm going to do, I'm going to add a little bit of heat to it. I'm going to add a tiny bit of that crimson to it, same colour. And I'm just going to edge the painting. So I'm just going to go right up the left hand side and right up the right hand side. And that is just to edge the painting and just to give it a clear definition right up to the tape. But I'm just smudging it with my finger just to make it look less harsh. And then all we're going to do, we're going to get some bright yellow, that cad yellow. And we're going to come straight down from the sun. And again, we're going to leave gaps, and that's going to create the illusion of highlights on top. So if I remove my tape, just to show you how well our transition has worked, we're going to rub out that chalk. This is looking fantastic. So all we're going to do is just smooth it up towards the sun, just make it look a bit softer so it's not as harsh. If you have baby wipes, you can always just go over it a bit. So if you ever make a mistake, the great thing is if your painting is dry, you can just use some baby wipes. Now all I'm doing here, I'm just making a little bit more orange either side. I think it would be warmer towards the sun. So all I'm doing is getting some of that bright orange. I'm doing the same trick. I'm leaving gaps in the underpainting, but I'm just using a bit of a warmer tone in the middle of the painting, coming out either side, because I'm just trying to emphasize the heat. Oh God, I've put too much paint. Never mind, we'll just work it into the painting. There we go. So I will gradually smear it and make that heat look really vibrant, and just make that area. I'll have to match it the other side now. So there is no such thing, as Bob Ross would say, as a wrong painting. There's just happy accidents. So if you do something like this, like, you can always paint over it. You can always just do what I'm doing, just add a little bit more heat either side, just to make it match. Whatever you do on one side, you want to match on the other side, just so everything looks symmetrical. Same thing with what I'm trying to teach you with all the dark tones. You want to darken the corners. So if you do it on one side, you want to do it on the other side, and that should frame your painting. So look, our ocean waves, the light is hitting it. By using that orange, just using the exact same trick and leaving gaps in the underpainting, because we've got that transition colour, even when we're adding a different colour now, we're just trying to smooth it, and we're just trying to make those transitions look really, really nice and tight. So look, all I'm doing, I'm just coming down just so I match it. Excellent. And that could look like the beam and sunlight. And I'm just going to get some bright yellow, and I'm going to do the same trick just so it matches our sun. So I'm just going to get some bright yellow, and I'm going to come right down the middle here, and I'm going to leave gaps just so it implies the waves. So we don't want to leave it too straight, we want to leave gaps, and we want to make some wonky, and that looks like the light is going up and down. Now I leant a bit to the right here. I think it's just simply because I'm leaning to the left while I'm filming it. So once I stood up, I realised my sunlight is a bit wonky, but what you want to try to do is come straight down from your sun. So if you're a bit like me and you've leant a bit towards the right, you can always just use a baby wipe afterwards and just sort of smear it and just make it less harsh. But all we're trying to do by leaving the gaps, we're just trying to imply the sunlight hitting these ocean waves and creating a beam of light coming directly down from the sun. Now I don't want it too far down, because obviously that's really cool in tone. So all I'm doing, I'm just rubbing out a little bit, but I'm leaving it. So again, if you use a baby wipe, you can just gradually smear it. I'm just from the right, I'm just making it less harsh, just so it's more straight. There we go. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to get some titanium white, and just down the middle I'm going to add a little bit of highlights coming straight down, and that is just the real emphasis from the sunlight beaming down between that yellow. So it's just to create a really nice highlight. I'm going to get some more orange and yellow, a little bit more cad yellow. So there we go. Load up our flat brush, and just around the sun I'm just going to make it a little bit lighter in tone, still leaving gaps. So it's always the same trick, but obviously we're just adding more highlights over the top, and that again is just to emphasize the heat from the sun, and we're trying to match the sky and the ocean water just to make the transitions look really realistic. Now you can do this with anything, with any scene. So if you've got a lovely blue sky, just try and match the tones on the water. So as I keep trying to teach you, I'm trying to teach you ways to find how to do the transitions and try to match them in the light. So there we go. That looks fantastic. So I've signed it in the left hand corner, and you've learned how to do a lovely transition in your background sky. You've learned how to do a sunset clouds. You've learned how to paint realistic ocean water. So we've got this ocean sunlight. We've got all this light effect. You've learned how to darken up your corners, how to darken up the shadow tones on things like your cloud, and how to create ocean waves super easy, and how to do a central point with a lovely glimmer effect on your ocean water to create the illusion of light shining down from your sun. So a really lovely easy tutorial. Here's the big bad boy that inspired this painting. If you'd like to check out any more of my original work, it's actually on my banner now, so you can click on it and you can see my original work on my YouTube banner. So please like and subscribe if you haven't done it already. I'm Murray, thank you so much for watching, and take care and have a lovely weekend. See you soon, bye.